The Free State Agricultural Department is hosting their annual two-day Congress today with farmers, commercial banks and other role players gathering to discuss the future of the sector. The gathering is being held under the theme Roots of Resilience, Power from the Ground Up, as the organization looks ahead to the next 120 years. For more on this, let's bring in SABC News reporter Makgala Masiteng, who's live to us from Bloemfontein. And Makgala, help us understand who exactly is part of this gathering.
Thank you very much, Ayanda. Yes, a lot of farmers are here. Of course, this is an organization focuses mostly on the commercial farmers, so they are all here, and also various organizations, of course, which are stakeholders in the agriculture industry. But what we have heard, especially coming from some of the farmers, were some of the challenges that they are still faced with, and these are not new issues that we're hearing about in terms of the infrastructure. They are talking about the quality of the roads in the rural areas, that the situation there is not good, and they are also saying that they've been engaging with a government to say that let these roads be fixed so that there is a good movement, in the rural areas, not only in terms of the traveling, of course, of the products in the farming area, but also in terms of the safety issue, which is also a very serious problem when it comes to agricultural industry. But for now, I'm going to bring in the CEO of the Agri SA, Johan Kotzie, just to talk about those issues and what is it that they want to see happening, of course, to resolve those issues. You would remember that in the Free State, agriculture is one of the industries that are very important or really contribute a lot in the GDP. Thank you very much, Ndade Kotzie, for joining us. Let's talk about these issues I just highlighted in terms of the quality of roads. What are these worrying challenges that the industry is faced with?
So I think two things they mentioned here at Free State, which is quite important to them, is the stock theft is a big one, and the other one is roads. If you take, say, for instance, the roads, whenever the roads are not in a good condition, your production cost goes up. And eventually somebody needs to pay for it. And so that goes up to a higher price for, say, the produce that we produce. So I think one thing that I've learned is we need to focus on the profitability of what we have, because eventually it feeds into food security. And food security is about people being able to buy food. The second thing on stock theft, I think that's a difficult one, specifically on the border ends of what we have here, and something that needs to have more attention. What I do appreciate is the communities participate in certain initiatives to kind of safeguard their own concepts from where they are, which is good. And then maybe a third one, which I've also heard at the conference, and I think it's something we need to talk about, is the dialogue from a farmer. Because I think sometimes, I don't know if everybody really understands the world of a farmer. And we have a perception of a farmer, and then reality is sometimes something different. And how do you deal with that? And what I do appreciate about a conference like this is that you have dialogue. That there's dialogue where people talk, and sometimes it's tough. When people say stuff, I would say, oof, was it really necessary to say it in such a way? But it is a dialogue. And what I think out of this conference, what I see is that we need to have more dialogue, so that I think government, institutions, bigger businesses, and then farmers, that they have a dialogue to be understood and also understand the challenges that they deal with.
Will there ever be a solution, especially when you're talking about stock theft? Because that is not a new thing. It has always been an issue here, especially in the Free State.
Well, I think we shouldn't give up. We shouldn't give up, and I think what we need to do is, if some of the people are tired of what happened and what is busy happening, what we need to do is we should continue. We should continue to find a solution. There must be a solution somewhere. So it's a tough one, and I think the impact thereof is rural. And it happens in the rural areas where you have a lot of poverty, which is tough. What do you do if farmers don't want to farm there anymore? It's becoming more rural. And that's what you don't want. You want to have a lucrative business being in the rural areas. But we should not give up.
Let's talk about talk about the finance and the profit part of it, and also let's bring in the issue of the increase of tariffs, as you would know.
So the tariffs is a tough call, but we need to understand a few things about the tariffs. We're not so special that it's only South Africa. It's 185 countries going into negotiations with America. So I think the world of trade changed, of which tariffs plays a major role. So that's the one thing. The second thing is, as agriculture, we got together as industries, which the ones who were affected by the tariff, specifically America. And we said one thing we can't let go of is the SPS matters, the phytosanitary measures that's in place to protect or to mitigate the risk of diseases coming into South Africa. And what I can say is our government supporting us on that, which is a good one. The tariffs is tough, and I think what the toughness about the tariffs is somebody needs to pay for it. And according to America's own statistics and own understanding is 80% of the tariffs normally going to be paid by the consumer in the country where you export to. So somewhere you're going to find the balance. The difficulty with the tariffs for us is we're seasonal, so the citrus guys are in the process and they're exporting to America now. And 30% less on profit means you're not going to make a profit, which can have an impact, again, at rural communities. If you think of citrus, or you think of the seed industry or the ostrich industry in Oudtshoorn, it would have a direct impact in the whole community, because you would have less people being able to go to ShopRite or USAFE to buy. And that's what you don't want. And that's the direct impact of a specific tariff like what we see now.
Thank you very much for joining us. That is the CEO of Agri SA, Ayanda, just taking us through some of the challenges faced by the agricultural industry, but also still remains optimistic to say that as farmers, they are not supposed to be giving up, especially when we talk about issues of stock theft, which you know it has been a problem for quite some time now in the agricultural industry. I actually wanted to bring him back just to talk on the issue of finance, because I heard the other farmer talking about now that there's a challenge in terms of financing of farmers, because some of them only have one profit, but it seems there's an issue in terms of banks supporting some of the farmers.
Yeah, I think it's not an issue from the bank side itself, but I think it's because of the risks that we face. Banks are also skeptical on that risks, which is possible, and they finance risk. So I think when we spoke about say for instance roads, and we spoke about stock theft, and we would say they spoke about droughts they had in the past and maybe fires, and all of that is a kind of a collection of risks, and the greater the risks, the more scary the bank's going to become, and they pull back, and that's what you don't want. So a dialogue like this kind of opens up this discussion to say, but is there a way that we can mitigate that risk? Because stock theft, you can stop it. There is a possibility to do it. And the moment you can do it, that person, you can finance him again. So think if you're an investor and you have a friend, and he lives on the border and there's a lot of stock theft. He comes to you and says, I want to farm with cattle. Are you going to put your money in? But we can if we mitigate that risk of theft. And that's what we need to do. So that it's not that the banks are not financing agriculture. They just kind of see the anticipated risks. And then they say, yeah, how do we deal with that risks? And that's what we need to mitigate.
Thank you very much this time, finally. Thank you very much. That is the CEO of Agri SA, Johan Kotsiede Ayanda, just talking about those issues. I had to just bring him back there just to talk about the issue of financing, because I had some of the farmers talking about the issue of the finance in the agricultural sector. And of course, as he had already explained, this is some kind of a chain where they need to be a mitigation in terms of the risk, so that even the banks are willing to support the farmers in terms of funding, Ayanda.
All right, Makgala Masiteng, fair enough. Thanks very much indeed. Makgala, live to us from Bloemfontein in the Free State.